Racism continues to be a problem for all of us today. It's a type of discrimination against others because of their background, in which people of a different race are discriminated against based on the belief that one race is superior. It can manifest as hatred or intolerance towards someone of another race in ways including violence. Fortunately, we can all help with that. In today's video, you'll find solutions to some of the most pernicious forms of discrimination today, and that will improve your life. But before we dive in, don't let today's exciting topic get you too rattled up. Go show your support for diversity by clicking on the link below and securing your copy of the book, Beaner Gringo, From Mexican Kid to American JD by Ivan Higuera. It's the vivid and provocative story of a young Mexican-American JD's journey overcoming many of the injustices we'll be discussing today to earn his law degree, and is guaranteed to keep you hooked from the first page. Boy, it sure hooked me. Best of all, it's available on Amazon.com in all formats for your delectation. Without further ado, there is no denying that the history of racial discrimination in the United States is long and complex. It begins with the history of slavery, which was a cornerstone of the American economy for centuries. Even after slavery was abolished, people of color continued to be treated as second-class citizens, subjected to Jim Crow laws and other forms of discrimination, including segregated housing, unequal education, and employment opportunities. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s was a turning point in the fight against racial discrimination. Through peaceful protests and civil disobedience, people of color demanded an end to segregation and other forms of discrimination. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a major step forward in the fight against prejudice discrimination, outlawing discrimination in public accommodations, education, and employment. Looking at the positive side, many other laws have been passed against racial discrimination, and some people no longer consider it to be a very big issue in America right now because they have a lot of other major issues to deal with. However, that number is very low in reality. But did you know that prejudice discrimination against others because of their background is a much broader problem than the history of racism in America might suggest? In fact, there is also discrimination against Latinos and against Americans. That's right, Latinos suffer discrimination based on their Latino roots, and Americans too suffer discrimination for being American. A good question to ask ourselves might be why discrimination against these groups exists today even though there are Latinos and Americans of European ancestry. There may be common reasons why discrimination against Latinos or Americans exists. One reason could be that some employers believe that some people in these groups are not as competent as those in other groups. This can lead to these groups being passed over for jobs or promotions, or being given lower pay. Another reason is that some people simply don't like or understand some of the people in these groups, and so they discriminate against them as a whole. This can happen in both intentional and unintentional ways. Discrimination against Latinos and Americans is something that needs to be addressed. It's important to remember that everyone should be treated equally, regardless of race or cultural background. There is no avoiding the fact that discrimination is still a serious problem today, not just in America, but throughout the world. This is a problem that needs to be dealt with immediately. How discrimination affects Latinos and Americans must be discussed openly and honestly. Then and only then can we start looking for a solution. As we all know, every problem has a solution. All you need is to take the first step towards it. However, it might surprise you to know that it is sometimes possible to find a solution to a larger problem in a particular form of that problem. That's why antidepressants are not only used to treat depression, but are used to treat anxiety and other psychological problems. So, keeping all of that in mind, let's explore some steps towards solving discrimination against Latinos and Americans. One solution could be to improve opportunities for Latinos and Americans. This is done by educating the general public about the history and experiences of Latinos and Americans to foster understanding and appreciation of the achievements of these increasingly overlapping cultural groups, creating more diverse workplaces and neighborhoods, which also also promotes understanding and appreciation. Laws providing more opportunities for Latinos and Americans to succeed. Increasing sensitivity training for people who work with the public to promote equal treatment. Creating more programs and initiatives that promote understanding and respect for all cultures. These are just a few of the many ways to address discrimination against Latinos and Americans. By taking action on these issues, we can create a more just and equitable society for all. There is no question that discrimination against Latinos and Americans is a real and pressing problem. However, it is important to remember that this is not an insurmountable problem. So what are you waiting for? Go show your support for diversity and buy your copy of Beaner Gringo now.